Well, I made this video not too long ago and I happened to upload this the same exact day where Simulanka's third wave of event quests occur. Turns out that we do hear Understar to speak, and the sight of the broken sea confirms pretty much a lot of things I said in that video. I kid you not, I supposed to upload that video on Friday, but because I had technical issues, I have to postpone it till Sunday. And man, I am pleasantly pleased with how this video confirms a lot of things already. Yes, I am not lying when I said I made it way before the quest. Yeah, I'm a saint, okay? Anyways, today I would like to do a recap video of Simulanka. I might have to separate it into two parts because I also want to recap the limited world quests, but I don't think it'll be enough for one video, so I'll make a second video for that reason. This first half will be all about the main quest and second half will be all about the world quests. Like last video, I will be doing a full-on recap on the lore and the overall gist on the quest we got. Half of this video will be all about the recap and the second half will be my theories and speculation on what is going to be the future of Natlan's Archon quest. I also would like to recommend you to watch my last video first because a lot of context in the previous video will be mentioned in this one. This is gonna be a very long video, so be sure to grab your snacks and get yourself ready for some juicy lore that we get. Of course, the obligatory disclaimer. Don't forget that half of this video will be all about theories based on what we know so far, so don't take them seriously and take them with a huge grain of salt. It's also worth noting if I mention anything that is related to real life history, they're simply references and don't represent the actual in-game product. To make it easier for you to differentiate the theory and recap section in case you're just listening to this video, this sound effect will let you know when we change sections. Also, this video is a leak-free zone. Please don't comment anything about leak content, they're not yet confirmed information and I would refrain myself from using leaks as my lore and theory crafting. My traveler of choice is Ether by the way, so I'll be referring to the traveler as he in this video. Before we start, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. I'm juggling my time as a college student, an artist, and video editing, so a little bit of boost will help this channel a lot, and that lets me know that I'm doing a good job. My name is Neko Gitsuna and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. The quest starts with us reading a mysterious book that suddenly teleports the traveler and Paimon to this world of fairy tales, namely the world of Simulanka. Trying to find a way out, we then meet an elder named Grandpa Almond, who essentially tells us that we are in the kingdom of breezes and bells, basically an area of Simulanka where the area is full of origami animals, and tells us a prophecy of a hero along with their companions who are going to save and restore the peace of Simulanka. He also tells us that the world of Simulanka was created by the three goddesses, namely the goddess of creation, who created and gave life to the world of Simulanka, goddess of prophecy, who dominates fate and the stars, and the goddess of fate, who treasures all wishes, stories, and bestows the feeling of love and hate, and also the meaning of life and death. These three will be relevant later, so be sure to remember them. Grandpa Almond told us that the new citizens of Simulanka used to give thanks to the Goddess of Creation, witness the power of Goddess of Prophecy in Constellation Metropole, and head their way to the end of the world to tell the Goddess of Fate about their cherished wishes. However, peace of the world has been disrupted by an evil dragon. This evil dragon came to the kingdom with its black mist and ravaged it. No one was hurt, thankfully, but because of this attack, the Calligraphy Tavern is closed, causing the kingdom to stop producing magic tonic, which is essentially a substance that sustains the life of Kingdom of Breezes and Bells. If they don't consume it, they will lose their color and eventually lose their memory as well. Right now, Grandpa Almond only waits for the fated hero to come, which he assumes that it's us, and we went to the Hut of Blessings to meet the Forest Fairy for clues. Before we continue, I just want to say that the way these origami animals work reminds me of how visions works. If it's taken away from you for a very long time, you'll eventually lose yourself, become crazed, and also lose your memories. We then meet Nilu, who is actually the Forest Fairy all along. She told us that she got transported to this world after reading a book in Zubai Theater, and someone spoke to her in her dreams that she is not the Forest Fairy and wants her to save the forest with her magic. She tries to use her vision, but it doesn't seem that her vision powers are what is needed to help the forest. First thing first, the traveler, Nilu, and Paimon decide to help the forest animals with their various problems to reopen the tavern. And it turns out that the magic tonic that Grandpa Almond mentioned earlier was ink. By ink, I mean, well, regular ink. We know this because, well, Paimon's usual greedy personality, and Nilo told us that apparently, the goddess of fate uses ink to create stories in her paper, and the goddess of creation used her power to create life with it. One of the hamsters also told us that the goddess of creation used the paper that folded their bodies, whispered something, and they turned into life. Nilu eventually tried this out after finishing their errands and created Padisara, who is a small origami hamster. So essentially, what is Nilu doing right now is using something that is called the magic of words. She kinda just think about it, and she just kinda follow it based on the legend that she just told us about. Anyway, Nilu also sensed the forest magic the moment she created Padisara and told us that the tavern feels empty and hollow. Grandpa Almond told us that there's something transparent under the tavern and there's a clinking sound when he knocks it. This is where Nilu realizes that it's an empty ink bottle, meaning there is no magic tonic that is able to sustain the calligraphy tavern. After gathering the ingredients, we tested it on Grandpa Almond and it worked like wonders. So, the gang take it to the tavern and the calligraphy tavern is restored with the power of magic of words. Grandpa Almond remembers everything and told us that he is the one who witnessed the goddess of prophecy. And apparently, we are the heroes because we descended from the cliff of prophecy, the area that we just arrived in. Paimon questions it whether we are the hero or not because we don't get any change of clothes, but Grandpa Almond is more than sure that we are the heroes regardless. Grandpa Almond told us to continue our journey to Constellation Metropole to ask for guidance from the goddess of prophecy. We then continue our journey with Nilo tagging along to find the exit of this world and also in pursuit of defeating the evil dragon. This is where the first half of Simulanka's story ends. The next day, we went to Constellation Metropole where we met Kigara, who is also transported to Simulanka as well. She is also dressed differently and her role is the Nekomata in Boots, which you should already know the reference, yeah? Who's in Boots? Anyway, we went our separate ways as Kirara wants to investigate the nearby area from the Metropole, which we will discuss later in part 2. But long story short, Kirara's quest is about us trying to uncover the real truth of the conflicting behind the scenes of Simulanka between 3 clan leaders. The rest? Well, you have to wait for the next video for it. Anyways, we encountered these 2 toy soldiers, Bluffon and Blucher, sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly, who are in a bit of a pinch. We'll help them by rewinding their time and changing the scenario a bit, which Bluffon and Blucher elaborate more on this power. Basically, this is a gift blessed by the goddess of prophecy. Whenever someone deviates from their path or what Blucher would say when something dangerous happens, the gift activates and anyone affected stops moving, preventing them from their end until someone helps them to change the scenario. From how these 2 describe it, it seems that this gift affects everyone in Simulanka, but the minigame tutorial specifically mentioned it to be the blessing in Metropole only, so it's safe to say that this blessing only affects the citizens of Constellation Metropole. Nilu also explained this in a better way. This blessing basically means that everything that happens in Constellation Metropole is already predetermined. We'll discuss more on this later. We finally reached the Constellation Metropole and are greeted by Navia, whose role is the king of Constellation Metropole and also got the same treatment as Nilo when she woke up, become the king and save your kingdom. But Navia kept her cheerful attitude despite the potential threat of being stuck in this world forever. Anyway, the dragon also causes trouble in the Metropole by snatching the stars from the sky. The Metropole guards stop the dragon, but some of the stars are now scattered away all across the Metropole. Paimon also tells Navia about wanting to consult to the goddess of prophecy, which Navia did tell us about her statue on top of the castle. The problem is that the goddess hasn't given out any new revelations to anyone, so whether the goddess will give us anything useful or not is something that the gang has to gamble on. Apparently, the goddess didn't tell the dwellers of Simulanka what was supposed to happen after the peace has been restored, and the prophecy that Grandpa Almond witnessed was told a very long time ago. The problem did not stop there. Remember the goddess's blessing that we just talked about? Apparently, the blessing has been triggering a lot more frequently, with a lot of the citizens of Constellation Metropole have been experiencing pauses, while some experiencing constant loops. Whether it's because the Metropole has gone more dangerous or there's deeper meaning to it, Navia didn't know for sure. Because of this, monsters nearby saw this as an opportunity to attack the Metropole. I swear, even in a somewhat more innocent and wholesome event, they really can't give Navia a break, couldn't they? Anyways, to solve this, Navia told us one of the prophecies that the goddess left, which is to push the gear on top of the castle. There, the goddess will dance and return the tracks back to the stars in the sky. Basically, put all the stars back, push a gear, and everything will be fixed, but in exchange of taking the blessing back. Because of this, a lot of the Metropole citizens are against it due to the fear of not being able to enjoy the blessing anymore and the fear of taking the next step. Despite all that, Navia wants to do what the blessing says, and the gang decide to help Navia to resolve this crisis. Along the way going to the top of the castle, we faced monsters, and we also found some of the stars that were scattered. It's also evident that some of the Metropole citizens don't want the blessing to go away. One is very reluctant to give it away, while the other throw the star to the garden, but don't worry, we did get them regardless. After solving a puzzle, we get to talk to the Goddess of Prophecy statue, which definitely didn't sound like Marvelous at all. Just like what Navia said, the statue does not tell any new prophecies and only answer the old ones like how to defeat the dragon and how to resolve the current Metropole crisis. After putting the star back to the sky, we were disrupted again by the Metropole citizens who still don't want the blessing to be taken away. After some talking back with Navia convincing the citizens that the goddess did not abandon them, but in fact wants the citizens to take their own path, while also sharing her personal struggles and experience, the citizen finally gives in, allowing Navia and the gang to push the gear. With that being said, the blessing is gone, and while the city is back to normal, some of the citizens are still stuck, but it's safe to say that everyone won't be stuck anymore after they recover from the blessing. Navia then joins us with the gang to defeat the dragon, and the citizen tells us to go to a place called the End of the World, where in this area, the dragon apparently have made some of the citizens go missing and never come back. This is where the second half of Simulanka's story ends. Before we start, I just want to mention that from this point on, we will get some direct canon lore, so get ready. The next day, we head our journey to the end of the world, with Navia tagging along this time. Taking the train from Maritime Express, the gang found the connecting line was attacked by monsters, so they defeated them. After taking the connecting line, the train eventually falls from the cliffs, with us falling unconscious and having a dream of someone talking to another person to witness and leave the world to this particular person she is speaking to. Luckily, everyone is saved by Wanderer, which in this case, I named him Jiyu, because Jiyu means freedom in Japanese. But for the sake of this video, we'll continue to call him Wanderer. Anyway, Wanderer saved us from the fall and even called us Sunshine and Adorable. Bro, who are you? What happened to— oh yeah, never mind. Your mom is a 500-year-old child. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. We then found out that all this time, Wanderer is prophesied to be the hero of Simulanka. The reason he doesn't help people of Simulanka is because he is not interested and wants to find a way out more than helping others. Which yeah, he is still a gremlin after all. But despite that, Wanderer still wants to find the dragon to solve the crisis, thinking that if he does that, he might be able to get out. We then take a dragon scale, which comes in handy when we approach the dragon's lair, and Navia is no longer Baltvia. Also, I just want to say, this trial team is terrible. But I guess it's fine, it's not like the stage is hard anyway. We entered the dragon's lair and found some of the toy soldiers from the Metropole who seemed to still here to fight the dragon. Here we found a dragon who suddenly attacked us without warning, and I have to say, the battle theme for Simulanka outside of the default Fontaine theme slaps. After getting knocked out, we have a mysterious dream of two ladies talking to each other and a little flashback of the dragon. As you might have expected by now from looking at the teacups, yes, these two are members of none other than the members of our favorite ladies, the Hexen Circle. Also, if you notice by their voice and their way of speaking, they're both none other than Adda's daughter and Barbaloth, which is not gonna lie, I am pleasantly surprised that my previous video predicted this correctly. Man, I'm so smart. Seeing the dragon's side of his story from the fragment of his memories, this made the gang feel bad of the dragon and decided wanted to talk to him. However, the dragon is scared of the gang, possibly because the Simulanka citizens have seen him as the evil dragon for so long, so instead of wanting to talk, he tries to drive the gang away instead by attacking them. I also want to mention something important here before we continue. The dragon's mist destroys everything it touches and is incredibly toxic. Because of this, during our battle with the dragon, we can't use the power of our vision. It's also interesting that the dragon's portal looks something very similar to the hole in the Book of Esoteric Revelations, and the abyss hole in the Foreshadowing oasis before it turned into full-bloom harvest Stockholm. Does this sound like someone familiar? The dragon uses his mist to bring Wanderer to his memory, and from here, we see Barbeloth and Understarter speak to each other. Barbeloth warned Understarter that if she created a dragon in her world of Simulanka with the name Understarter plant, he would receive the same fate as the same one in the real world, aka Teyvat, that was abandoned by its creator. Despite this, however, Anders' daughter still created the dragon anyway, the dragon full of love, a chance for it to receive a better life, even though it's in the world of fairy tales. She also mentions the dragon will get some help eventually, even though it's a gamble that it will happen or not. We also happen to find out that the person who spoke in the beginning of the quest is none other than Understarter in her old age, and eventually died, quotations, abandoning the dragon behind, who the dragon refers to as his mom, just as Barbeloth prophesied. The dragon ever since had a hard time trying to make friends because of his terrifying and large figure, scaring away the dwellers of Simulanka despite almost making one a friend himself. Because of this, the dragon wished that he was never born in the first place. Wanderer, who had similar experience, felt sympathetic towards the dragon, but firmly told the dragon that wanting not to be born at all is not the fate he should ever wished for. And from here, we learn the dragon's name is none other than
누구도 널 함부로 정의할 수 없고 누구도 네 마음을 부정할 수 없어. 네 이름을 떠올려라.
Durin. I will explain more about Durin later, but just to let you guys know, no, this is not the same Durin from Mondstadt. I promise I will explain about him more in a bit. For now, let's finish the recap. Kirara eventually joined the gang after hearing from the Metropole citizens about the gang's whereabouts and has followed us since then, saving the traveler when he fell down from the Dragon's Fall. Wanderer explains what he saw in the memory as he looked inside the mist to the gang. Kirara also mentions that there is no attack by the dragon in the village of the Broken Sea despite them being stranded, meaning Durin lets them leave because there is nowhere else for them to go. As for the toy soldiers we see who are attacking the dragon, they're soldiers from the Metropole to claim the dragon's head, but Durin let them live here for the same purpose. We also found Wanderer's purpose to become the hero, to eventually save the dragon. Eventually, we fall into the dragon's whereabouts. This is where we found Understarter's study room. Understarter's full name is Anya M. Understarter, and by all means, she is supposed to be A in Hexen Circle. But of course, Alice has to use the I am older than you rule, so Understarter is nicknamed as M because of her middle name. It seems that Barbeloth's nickname to Understarter is Barbie, seemingly to show how close Understarter is to Barbeloth. This is where we also see Understarter behind the scenes of making the world of Simulanka. In the other letter, we see Understarter wrote a letter to other Hexen Circle members, thanking them for making the world of Simulanka into reality and for making her youth enjoyable. Even though Understarter is dead, the goddess of fate will continue to exist in Simulanka to carry on granting wishes. We also see that the moment Understarter died, she became a star in Simulanka, just like what she told Durin. From this, we can see that Simulanka was completed hundreds of years ago, and this is during the time where Hexen Circle members wrote The Little Witch and The Undying Fire as perhaps a final gift to Understarter before she died. This makes the story behind that book even sadder. We had a heart-to-heart conversation with Durin, in which we found out how much of a softie Durin actually is. He wants to get along with the people of Simulanka, but he is afraid to do so because of his nature to always break everything apart. In which, Nilu told Durin to make a wish to the goddess of fate, and with the help of her using the magic of words, the same magic that she used to give Padisara a life, she gave her blessings as the forest fairy so Durin can become a citizen of the Forest of Blessings in the Kingdom of Breeze and Bells. The gang also give their blessing to Durin, Wanderer who wants to become Durin's friend, and including the Traveler himself who also give Durin his blessings.
이 세계를
할게. The magic worked, and Durin is transformed into a small little dragon. He no longer destroys anything that he touches, so he is completely changed, allowing him to interact with Simulanka residents without causing any harm. After we exit Durin's lair, we are greeted by Alice in the form of a lantern. She named Durin as Mini Durin for his small size, and revealed that the goddesses are in fact the members of Hexen Circle. The goddess of creation is Alice, who made Simulanka into reality. Barbalos is the goddess of prophecy, creating the fate of the residents in Simulanka with her astrological power. And Understarter is the goddess of fate, who created the fairy tale of Simulanka. Alice then answers all the questions the gang has. Durin already made a wish to the goddess of fate to get along with the people of Simulanka, and the moment he did just that, the gang just so happened to hold the copy of Understarter Book of Simulanka. Because of that, the gang were chosen by the goddess of fate to save the world of Simulanka. We also get an answer as to why the traveler doesn't have any role like the others, and Alice simply answered because it'll be a waste for the traveler to miss this beautiful world. So Alice simply invites the traveler to visit Simulanka by giving him a copy of the said fairy tale. Because the traveler gives his blessing to Durin as someone outside of the story, Durin can now explore the worlds outside of Simulanka, meaning he can now go to Tevat and beyond. And the starter told Alice that she wished everyone would someday explore the world outside of Simulanka. So despite their predestined fate, they will eventually disappear anyway. Alice also told us we can live all along, just go to the Cliff of Prophecy and focus where we want to go. So pretty much our effort to find a way to live was always under our nose all along. Alice left, leaving Durin her blessing to have a colorful life just like his mother and his daughter. The story ends with us looking at the beautiful stars, a gift seemingly left for Durin by Understarter. This is where the third half of Simulanka's story ends. Finally, the epilogue, which I would argue has some of the bigger lore bombs in the entire 4 sequences. Some of the first half of the epilogue is just our banter with Jean, Kaya, and Kale. We get more lore the moment we talk to Mona, who revealed that the statue of Goddess of Prophecy is indeed Barbaloth in her youth, and she also happens to like being a fashionable person. Mona also told us that the stars in the world of Simulanka are based on Tevat, meaning the fate of the residents in Simulanka is already predetermined based on Tevat. The best analogy for this is just like a mirror, so Simulanka is the mirror of Tevat. This will be important later, I promise. We also meet Fischl, Klee, and Albedo along with Mini Durin and Wanderer. Fun fact, Fischl and Wanderer met before in the 1.1 Unreconciled Stars event, but of course, because of the Emerson tappering, Fischl does not remember him as Scaramouche, so Fischl only sees him now as someone who she just met. Anyway, while Klee, Fischl, and Mini Durin play with each other, Wanderer reveals more prophecies being told by Barbaloth to the Traveler and Albedo, that Rhindaughter's version of Durin will revive soon. Albedo also thinks this prophecy will come very soon because he can sense Durin's heartbeat in Dragon's spine starts to beat once again, slowly but surely. Remember, this was revealed hundreds of years ago because Barbaloth told this prophecy to Understarter when she was still alive. Albedo told Wanderer to help them once the day comes because fate has intertwined Wanderer with Mini Durin, and it can't be a coincidence that this has happened in the first place. Especially he also believed that fate of Simulanka may have reciprocal effect with Tevat. Wanderer doesn't immediately accept the proposal, but he may still think about it. We then see a boat made by Nilou, and with this, they help the stranded people of the Broken Sea go back home. This is where the Simulanka story officially ends. Now, before we get to speculation, let's talk about the new canon lore we received from Chapter 3 to Chapter 4. First of all, this Durin is not the same as this Durin. However, they are strongly connected in many ways. If you watch my previous video about the Imaginum Theater's lore, we learned from Wolfie that Understarter Magic is creating fantasy truth, and her friends, aka the other Hexen Circle members, are making it into reality, meaning the stories she creates are based on things that happen in Tevat, and based from what we know, Alice and Barbaloth created the world of Simulanka based on Understarter's story about Simulanka. Taking from what Mona also said about how Simulanka's fate is basically the mirror of Tevat, This means that Simulanka's version of Durin is based on Ryandarder's version of Durin, and this is proven very well with what Simulanka's version of Durin was facing when trying to get along with the residents of Simulanka, because even Simulanka's Durin mist works similarly like Ryandarder's Durin's blood, which both are incredibly toxic. Knowing Anda's daughter who doesn't like sad stories, even though she created the bird princess, Anda's daughter seems to write her version of Durin with a much lighter burden so he can live happier, because the real version of Durin has it a lot tougher. According to the lore of Festering Desire and Dragonspine Spear, if you don't have Festering Desire, I'm so sorry for your loss, Ryandarder's Durin always believed himself to be beautiful, and genuinely believed that his toxicity is a blessing. Because of this, during the Cataclysm, he spread his poisonous blood to the people of Mondstadt, thinking he gave his blessing to the people when in reality, he was causing great harm to the people of Mondstadt. He genuinely believed that he was dancing along with Dvalin, Barbados, aka Fenty for this one, and the people of Mondstadt, but in reality, he was having a huge war with them. Mind you, he was unconscious during this battle and he was in a dream based on the weapon's lore. He soon realizes what he has done the moment Dvalin deals a killing blow, and despite this, he held no ill will and wished that they could have met under better circumstances. From the looks of it, he probably still thinks that his blood is a blessing despite already waking up from his dream based on the final line of the Dragon Spear's lore. Also, the bones we see in Dragonspine are indeed Durin's bones, and this spread up we see in Rimvrast Valley is indeed Durin's heart. Now let's get into the theories. Let's start with the easy one first before we talk about the potential Natlan plot. It seems that we will be getting a new character story based on what the current event has told us, possibly Albedo or Fenty's second story quest. We might even get Durin as the next weekly boss. It could be released during the next Dragonspine event, which in this case could be the next Christmas event in December. However, I also wouldn't be surprised if this will take way longer than that, possibly during Khaenri'ah's patch, but one thing for sure, we will face Durin again sooner or later, or perhaps even Ryandarder as well. Now, from the way Anda's daughter and Barbloth have their conversation, it's likely that this conversation takes place after the Cataclysm, which could mean that Ryandarder released her abyssal creations while she's still in Hexen Circle. This could also mean that the Hexen Circle members have a somewhat cold relationship with Ryandarder after this from how their conversation went, especially that Ryandarder basically destroys some of the members' home. But with their oath to never turn others away no matter what happened, there could be a possibility that these ladies may understand why Ryandarder felt this way in the first place, since their Archons essentially destroyed her home, and knowing their sole existence is to explore the Irminsul and Barbaloth's ability as a visionary, they just let Ryandarder do her thing, and even if they tried to stop her, they couldn't because they know the monsters Ryandarder created are highly toxic due to them created using abyssal powers. Besides, it seems that Ryandarder and Alice still have a good relationship, since she told Albedo to find Alice for guidance. Speaking of Ryandarder, it's also worth noting that the moment she released her creation during the Cataclysm, let's take Durin for this instance, it seems she somewhat sedated Durin into thinking that he was having a wonderful time and gave blessings to the people of Mondstadt. We learn from the 2.3 quest event that the moment Ryandarder created Durin, he is declared as Ryandarder's most miraculous creation. It seems that Ryandarder created Durin literally as a dragon who loves everyone, but the moment the Cataclysm struck, she had to somewhat sedate or maybe hypnotize it because she knew Durin wouldn't have done such a thing. From the way Anda's daughter wrote Durin from her own version, it seems she knew Durin was not meant to be an evil dragon to begin with. This could possibly be the same with her other creations, that being Rift Wolves and possibly Elena's as well, from how remarkably similar Elena's and Durin's history is. It's possible that none of them wanted to create destruction to begin with, but with how Ryandarder's mental state was back then, it could be very possible that she had to somewhat make her creations to turn against Celestia and destroy everything it sees out of revenge. But how about Dainsleigh's word about her being the 5 sinners of Khaenri'ah? There is a possibility that she unleashed her monsters just out of revenge, and because of this, she ended up doing so without actually defending Khaenri'ah. However, Rhindaughter's motive when she unleashed her monsters are still unknown, and there's no solid proof as to why she did it in the first place. So I personally wouldn't hold this theory way too tightly, but the possibility of her creations are not meant to be evil could be something we can take a note of for now. The topic of Rhindaughter is very wide, so I'll stop for now, and we can talk more about her in another video if there's a chance. Now let's talk about the possible Natlan plot, which I am excited to talk about. First things first, we all know by now that Natlan is separated into 6 tribes, and it's very possible that this event could foreshadow how it'll work in Natlan. It seems that the first few tribes we will unlock are going to be Kinnick and Mualani's tribe, or perhaps even more tribes if there's a chance. Also, from how they made Simulanka, it seems that each area is their own city, meaning the tribes that we will visit in Natlan are going to be individuals as well. From the second teaser, someone actually stitched the map to look like this, and combined with Natlan trailer we got, it seems that we have at least 2 or maybe even 3 tribes that we can visit so far during 5.0. Unlike the previous summer events where the whole area is literally one huge chunk like Golden Apple Archipelago and the Valyrian Village, it seems that Simulanka is a world while each area is a different region. Just think of it like Teyvat and its 7 nations, alright? So I would assume that Natlan is going to be similar to that. Maybe Nanatskayan has a different area, and so does the others. As for this big area over here, I don't think it's the main city, but something like a landmark. If you ask me and my artistic capabilities, it looks way too small to be a city from the design perspective, since most cities we've visited so far have large figures like Mondstadt with the huge statue of Animal Archon and big wall in the middle of the Cedar Lake, or Sumeru where the city is literally on a huge tree, and so on and so on. If anything, Mualani's tribe seems more like an actual city than this area, but of course, I could be wrong. I also want to say that Natlan's government might be ruled by both the Archon and the Pyro Sovereign, because in Simulanka, the government is ruled by 3 goddesses. There could be a very solid reason as to why this happened, but it's a very highly possibility because Neuvillette describes Saurians as dragons that have undergone long-term development and evolutions to the point they now coexisted with humans. Now of course, we all know by now that the Sovereigns have strong hatred towards the Archons, but also remember that Apep did say it herself that some Sovereigns do have close relationship with humans now, with one of them that we know so far, Neuvillette. Because she said it as plural and not singular, this could possibly mean that the Pyro Sovereign is one of the dragons that have a close relationship with humans and the Pyro Archon. This also aligns with the pattern of how Pyrovision users receive their vision. All of them have very strong connection towards their family member, notably their parental figures, whether it's positively or negatively. And we can see that consistently happening very recently even, with Lini with Arlecchino, Severus with her strict father, Gaming with his overprotective father, and Arlecchino with Crisibena. This could imply that the Pyro Archon might have a very strong relationship with the Pyro Sovereign despite their bad blood in the past. For the actual plot itself, this is gonna be very speculative, but I don't think there is an actual war in Natlan, at least not at the current moment. Of course, there are wars that happened in Natlan before, as mentioned in Talking Stick and the Unfinished Reverie artifact set, but if you want lore explanation of that one, you can watch Silicon 1-4's video about it. Everyone seems to be living in peace, and we can take it into account how Simulanka works. No one in Simulanka seems to have cold blood with each other other than with Durin, of course. In fact, they frequently visit each other's kingdom. We also see how disinterested Silanen and Citlali are when they receive the ball for the tournament, especially Citlali who threw the ball with such annoyances. The only thing that keeps them getting in quote-unquote clash with each other is the tournament, which even then, tournament in modern term is described as sporting competition. Yes, in Middle Age, tournament is described as an actual battle, but it's between 2 individuals rather than multiple people. Even if it is with multiple people, it's usually on a smaller number of people than large number, because at that point, it's more considered as a war than a tournament. Unless you count this sad excuse of a war, then I don't know what's more embarrassing than that in Genshin's term. Anyways, even if that's not the case, then constant war in Natlan that Neuvillette mentioned could be this tournament where instead they fight with blood, they fight with competitive spirit instead. Or, do you remember the time that Kachina got attacked by one of the enemy mobs in Natlan? I think the war Natlan is facing right now is a war against people who want to live in peace and others who still hold the older traditions. And the moment Kachina enters this guy's tribe for perhaps invading, they are angry and attack her at the end. Even if Kachina is from a different tribe, my point still stands because it's more than likely that Kinnick is from a different tribe and actually fight alongside Moalani and Kachina. However, there's also another way to look at this. Let's hear what Dainsleif has to say about Natlan first.
The rules of war are woven in the womb. The victors shall burn bright, while the losers must turn to ash. When the god of war shares this secret with the traveler, it is because she has her reasons.
So basically what he said is that everyone in Natlan has always been born with the war spirit inside of them. And this is somewhat proven to be true if we take the Chinese translation literally. So whether the war that happened in Natlan is intentional or not, they have to have some sort of war to begin with in order to perhaps sustain something. Maybe this is why they can't leave Natlan in the first place. Ranjit from the 4.6 event revealed to us that Natlan people have reservations on leaving their homeland. And to him, it doesn't seem that Natlan residents don't want to leave because of the unfamiliar environment. This is similar to how Alice told us that the gang can always leave whenever they want. It's just that we can't leave because we don't know how, and eventually we know how to leave after resolving Simulanka's crisis. Perhaps this is also something that Natlan residents have to do as well. They have to find a way to perhaps resolve their long-term crisis before they can leave. And of course, the traveler becomes the usual errand boy to help them through their crisis. Of course, they have to. As for Vanessa, maybe the moment her clan left, they ended up becoming slaves as their punishment, but let's not dwell on that for now. Now let's dissect more into the individual quests from each half of Simulanka. The first half could be something related to the tribe itself. I do believe that each tribe have some sort of artifact that is precious to them or perhaps even sustains their whole tribe. If each tribe does have something like this, perhaps a primal fire, then extinguishing it could lead to some various disasters to the said tribe. Just like the residents of the forest lost their color because they don't have magic tonic to sustain them, and similar how the people of Constellation Metropole lost their blessing after having it taken away by the prophecy. However, if primal fire is not the case here, then it could be something else that can affect the people of Natlan, or perhaps the whole Teyvat, which comes to the next section. The second half of Simulanka talks about the disaster that the people of Constellation Metropole is facing, and that being constant loop until their fate is fixed by a third party. This is where I also think that Natlan may have something similar to this. I don't personally think it could be a constant samsara because we already experienced that in Sumeru, but could be a section why we see Natlan have constant war in the first place and why they have to continue the tradition. But if that's not the case, then this is the section where we start to enter the territory of the fake sky and see the truth behind it. Knowing that Natlan could possibly be closely related to the sun as well because of the nature of it being the nation of Pyro, we might even experience some sort of eclipse in Natlan. This is highly speculative, but perhaps in the Archon quest, we might get an answer about the note left in the Tower of Ipsissimus regarding to a time loop Teyvat is experiencing, because one of the names mentioned, one of the era, is called Natlantian. I also believe this is where Citlali might start to have a more impactful lore in Natlan's Archon quest, because it seems that her tribe, or perhaps just her, is more focused on what happens beyond the skies of Teyvat. This is speculative, of course, because Citlali's name means star in Mexican names. And judging on how the current Simulanka event kept on talking about fate and stars, this leads me to believe that Citlali has a crucial role in the upcoming Archon quest. I will elaborate more on this in a bit, but let's dissect the third half first. The third half of the Archon quest seems to foreshadow the moment Natlan's sky is splitting, and we seem to face a very strong enemy at the end of this. Personally, I don't think it's Capitano, because from how Farquhar describes him, it seems that Capitano is a man who doesn't fight unless there's a good reason why he should do it. Of course, there could be a possibility that it's him, but to me, I don't think it's him. At least at the moment, we won't be fighting him for malice reason, given that everyone in the Fatui seems to talk so highly of him, except of course, our little gremlin here. Although Kapitan or someone else might trigger something that made the sky splitting like we see in Simulanka quests, where we eventually found out about the broken sea after getting through the dark mist made by Simulanka's Turin. This is where I think that the real war plot might begin. We fight the abyssal monsters that exit from the fake sky. This is gonna be a very copium and wild speculation. Are you ready? Perhaps the primal fire has extinguished, and the people of Natlan can no longer sustain themselves or the firmament. In the Travail trailer, Dainsleif said this:
When the god of war shares this secret with the traveler, it is because she has her reasons.
We see in Simulanka that the gang gave Durin their blessings so he can start to live alongside other residents of Simulanka. So, what if Mavuika gives her powers to the Traveler? It's very possible that Mavuika might know that the Traveler is a Descender, and knowing how a Descender has the power to shake the foundations of the world, she gave her power to the Traveler in order to stop the impending disaster. Perhaps we might even get the blessing of the Pirate Sovereign as well, which in this case might be Xbalanque. As for now, the quest is resolved, we'll just have to wait and see, because this is something that I personally cannot think of, and I would rather not to, so I can fully have my immersion towards the story. Finally, let's talk about Citlali. Why do I think her role might be very important? First of all, remember that other summer events usually foreshadow events of the upcoming Archon quest, usually not directly or small snippets of them. The time we have a more direct foreshadowing is during 3-pointed event, especially the second half of the quest where the Fairgrounds tent foreshadows the fortress of Meripede, everyone is an Oceanid homunculus, and Idia is basically Farina. You also find some interesting lore tidbits directly related to the upcoming nation, like we learn about Akudumeki's lead during Inazuma's war, we hear Nahida spoke to us directly in the second Golden Apple Archipelago event, and we learn a lot more about Fontaine from Idia after we finish the main quest. But this time, we see no one. Zero. Not a single NPC talks about Natlan during this event. If anything, the only person we hear about Natlan the most is from Ranjit from the 4.6 event, and all we talk about ever since 4.7 lore-wise is all about the sky. If the plot about Natlan is less to the nation itself and possibly talk about the stars more, then Citlali could have a bigger role to aid the traveler when the said disaster of the sky splitting happens. I would personally bet she might have similar powers like Barbeloth and Mona, who can read the stars of Teyvat and perhaps know all the fate that is already predetermined. However, her vision is none other than Cryo, which Cryon vision users' pattern have something to do that is contradictory to what they wished for or their fate, whether it's positively or negatively. The best example we have right now is Chongyun, who wanted to become a great exorcist but ended up unable to find any evil spirit because of his excessive pure yang energy, causing the evil spirit to run away from him before he can get any closer. Another example is Diona, who is a bartender who wants to destroy the wine business of Mondstadt, but ends up only making the best drinks no matter what the ingredients she used thanks to Caliroe's blessing. The most recent one being Risley, who used to be an inmate but ended up becoming the Duke of Fortress of Meripede. This could be the same case with Citlali. She has the power, or perhaps a gift given with the pattern we have from cryovision users, to see the fate of the stars. And it's possible she might have a power that is between Mona and Barbeloth. Perhaps she grows fearful of seeing the truth if she tries to explore deeper, hence why she doesn't use her gift at all, and she disliked any sort of war to begin with, because war clearly has something to do with Natlan's closed-off nature, or perhaps something that they have to do to sustain something like I just mentioned. But of course, it's only based because her name literally means star, and I can be very wrong about my speculations since names don't usually mean something so significant about their character. The best example would be Sucrose, which means sugar, but her personality is very timid and shy, something that is kinda contradictory when you think of sugar. But hey, it's why this video is theory crafting anyway, having fun making silly and weird conspiracies until it's debunked by the game. I honestly can't believe I even made this video because this is taking an extremely long time and effort to make. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this video regardless. I'll be making a second video to recap the side quests of Simulanka and talk about my speculations based on them. If you like this video, don't forget to consider giving it a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys on my next video. じゃ、またね